there's been some very shady stuff happening in the UFC lately. Allegedly. The whole Isaac Dulgarian, Yadier Del Valle thing has blown up. Tons of people have been making videos about it, and it's basically called into question the integrity of the UFC as a whole. In my opinion, it's only fair that every single bet I've ever placed on the UFC be refunded in full. So, Dana, hit me up and sort that shit out, please. Honestly, it's no surprise to me at all that this stuff has been discovered. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you're a fan of the sport with half a brain, you know that certain fights are put together with a very clear and obvious guy that the UFC wants to win. These matchmakers know what they're doing, most of the time. And then occasionally we get fucking stupid matchups like this shit. Now, I'm not accusing the UFC or any fighter of fixing fights here. Just want to get that out there on the record. No. Today, I'm not talking about guys getting approached by shady characters in a trench coat and being passed a pile of cash in a brown paper bag under the table. We're going in a different direction. In this video, I'm listing fighters in each division who are paid to lose. Not in the Isaac Dulgarian type of way, not in the Derek Minner type of way, allegedly, but literally. The UFC books these guys' fights against wicked up-and-coming guys because they know there's an excellent chance that the opponent fucks them up. These are the fighters who turn up for a paycheck, lose almost every time, pad some superstar's record, and then do it all again in another few months. The UFC keeps them around to help their up-and-coming guys get easy highlight reel KOs and submissions. Occasionally, these guys manage to fluke a win just as a middle finger to Dana, but only very rarely. For this list, we're only considering active UFC fighters, or at least ones who have fought recently enough to be considered active. For context, let's look at what I consider to be the Mount Rushmore of professional losers. Here you can see the founding fathers of failure. Anthony Smith, boasting an impressive 37-22 record and still fighting in and around the rankings up until his retirement. Tony Ferguson, subject of one of the most tragic UFC declines known to fans. BJ Penn, the definition of a fall from grace, went on a legendary 7-fight L streak before he was eventually mercy cut. Not to mention the poor bloke's mental decline happening alongside that of his career. And finally, one of the most underrated losers of all time. People forget, man. Sam Alvey was one of the OG dependable punching bags. Launched many a career from guys beating him. So, thank you to these pioneers who paved the way for the guys we're about to see in this video. Thank you for your service, fellas. The UFC is a better place thanks to your glass jaws and itchy tapping fingers. So let's get into the list of the pound for pound most consistent losers in the UFC right now. Let's punch on. All right, starting off at the Flyweight division, I've got a couple of honourable mentions here, followed by a guy who, in my opinion, should be investigated immediately. Let's get into the first honourable mention. Alex Perez, 25-9 record, notable losses to Tatsuro Taira, Muhammad Mokaev, Alexandre Pantoja, Figgy, and Joseph Benavidez. I swear this guy only ever fights on short notice. Anytime he's actually scheduled for a fight, he seems to pull out. He seems to always have an excuse to lose. Oh, it was on short notice, who cares? Let's get him another good fight up the rankings soon. A respectable punching bag to get this list started. Next honourable mention, Cody Durden. 17-9-1. This guy's been modelling his career off Tony Ferguson, I reckon, on a pretty legendary loss streak himself, and also the type of guy who steps in on short notice regularly. You got to credit them for that, but it doesn't seem to go very well often for Cody Durden. I think you have to give some bonus points to these guys who step in there against the rising stars who no one wants to fight. This guy took on Muhammad Mokaev, Joshua Van, Jose Ochoa, Alan Nascimento. Yeah, he's stepping in against good competition. That's a hallmark of some of these guys. I'm not just picking up random jobbers who just lose in the UFC constantly. I'm talking guys who the UFC can depend on to lose to their big names. And Cody Durden is one of those guys. And finally, the guy that we are investigating immediately. This guy deserves to be on the FBI's watch list, on Dana's watch list. One of the reasons I made this video, Matt Schnell. Every time this guy jumps in there, I'm thinking, I swear this guy just is immune to being cut. 17-10, but I swear he's lost more than that. Lost to Steve Erceg, Cody Durden, Mateus Nicolau, Brandon Royval, the champ Pantoja, Rob Font, Tim Elliott back in the day. Just lost to Joseph Morales on the last card. Yeah, this guy is captain reliable when it comes to losing in the UFC. One of the chinniest, most finishable flyweights of all time, and still getting booked in highly ranked fights in the UFC. Investigate this guy, stat. Moving on to the Bantamweight division. Our first honourable mention goes to a guy who I've got a lot of respect for, and it pains me a bit to put him on this list. It is Marlon Cheeto Vera. Definitely not the strongest contender, but you got to admit, this guy, he's pretty reliable. He knows how to lose a decision, and he's damn good at it. We saw that in his most recent performance against Amian Zahabi. Even when he wins a fight, he still loses the fight. So respect to Cheeto. Very, very dependable to take an L. Lost to a lot of big names, which helps his cause here. A lot of the guys who he's lost to have then gone on to fight for the title. We're talking Amian Zahabi, Figgy, Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen, Jose Aldo, and Song Yadong. Every time this guy jumps in the cage, it's a very, very good bet to put some money on his opponent by decision. This guy can't be finished, but he sure as hell knows how to lose on the scorecards. Another honourable mention is the young Punisher, Pedro Munoz. Bro, this guy is approaching Hall of Fame status with his losing. Somehow continues to stay hovering around the rankings and keep getting big names in the UFC. He's 20-10, lost to guys like Zahabi as well, Kyler Phillips, Cheeto as well, bonus points for losing to another guy on here who's a professional loser, Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Aljo, Dodson, Rivera, Asunciao, all these guys back in the day. This guy's padding the records of many a notable bantamweight, and I'm sure he's going to be doing it for another couple of years. Pedro, the young Punisher, honourable mention. Now, even though this next guy has not got as many losses as Pedro Munoz or Marlon Vera, it's just the way that this guy's losing and the type of fights that the UFC's putting this guy in. Chris Moutinho. Only 3 notable losses in the UFC, one of them to Guido Canetti. You can pretty much ignore that one. But the way that he got chucked in there to the Sharks against Sean O'Malley and Malcolm Wellmaker just goes to show how the UFC treats this guy and how they think about him. Investigate not just Chris Moutinho, but the UFC for putting this guy in against these savage killers. How the fuck did the commission sanction this guy to go in there against Malcolm Wellmaker? That was totally unfair. Easiest lock I've ever done in my life. Malcolm Wellmaker by round 1 KO. Poor Chris Moutinho. I've never seen a guy take so much damage and still stay standing and then get KO with one shot in his next fight. What the fuck is the UFC doing bringing this guy back? I guess we know. He's just in there to pad the records and create highlight reels, and he's damn good at it. So shout out Chris Moutinho, a professional punching bag to the core. Let's get on to the featherweight division. A little bit tougher to find guys that belonged on the list here at featherweight, but I did manage to find a few crafty picks here. The first one is going to be Ricardo Hamosh. Look at this fucking Roger from American Dad looking motherfucker. 17-8, sneaky punching bag. Flies under the radar, this guy, but consistently dependable to get chinned or do something stupid and lose. He's the master of sticking his head in a ghillie in a very suspect-looking way. Definitely borderline investigatable, some of the ways this guy just chucks his head in a ghillie randomly. I knew he was going to get subbed by Khan Offley, and he did very quickly. Other losses to up-and-coming guys like Chepe Mariscal, Charles Jourdain, Zubaira Tukagov, Lerone Murphy, Saeed Nurmagomedov. Yeah, this guy, the UFC knows what they're doing keeping this guy around. The next honourable mention is Josh Emmett, and this one kind of hurts a little bit too. I like Josh Emmett, but this guy should have retired or been cut about 5 or 6 fights ago. I feel like the featherweight division's been pretty lost and dead for such a long time that any time they've got an up-and-coming guy, it's just immediately chuck him in there with Josh Emmett and they either get chinned and destroyed to the shadow realm like Bryce Mitchell, or they fucking whoop up Josh Emmett and all of a sudden they're in the top 5. We saw that with Ilia Topuria. Yair Rodriguez got his interim belt off Josh Emmett for some reason. Lerone Murphy toasted him. Yusuf Zalal just submitted him in 1 round. Yeah, I think even though he is a killer and was one of the pound-for-pound hardest hitters in the UFC, maybe still is, he's a one-trick pony, and anyone who's able to avoid his power and his damage is probably going to beat him. I can see the UFC chucking this guy in against Jean Silva, Jack Jenkins, or some other good up-and-coming featherweight, and Emmett's just going to keep on stacking up the L's. Now, this one hurts a little bit too. This has been a pretty dramatic fall from grace. Very highly touted back in the day, and guys were speaking about him as one of the best boxers in the UFC until he went against the real best boxer in the UFC. It is Calvin Kattar. Investigate this guy, fucking stat. Why is he still in the UFC? Look, I'll cut him some slack. He's obviously faced elite opponents and always been in big fights, but he's well past his prime and he ain't getting any better. and the L's just keep on falling like dominoes. Renato Moicano, Zabit Magomedsharipov, absolutely fucking murdered and embarrassed by Max Holloway. I'm the best boxer in the UFC, baby. Josh Emmett beat him. Arnold Allen beat him, and I think he broke his leg or something in that fight. Aljo beat him. Yusuf Zalal, and he just got toasted by Steve Garcia. Look, if that loss resume was flipped to wins, this guy would probably be the GOAT. But yeah, he's pretty much at this point being chucked in there to leg kick, throw a few jabs, and then just get fucking destroyed by whoever he's versing. Calvin Kattar, very, very sus that he's still in the UFC. On to the lightweight division. The first honourable mention goes to Kyle Prepolek. This guy's had 2 separate runs in the UFC, and both times he's just gone LL cut. LL, and I'm assuming he's about to get cut again, or maybe he gets one more fucking crack at it and loses again before he gets cut. When you see guys like this in the UFC, it's almost like you're thinking, have they fucking run out of fighters or something? How is Kyle Prepolek still in the UFC? I reckon my nan could beat this guy. Nah, that's a bit harsh. Another guy who's lost to some good guys, and Austin Hubbard. Benoit Saint-Denis made light work of him. Drew Dober just fucked him up. The first white guy Drew Dober's beaten in a long time. And yeah, even though he hasn't got the longest string of UFC losses, this guy doesn't look like he's up to scratch in the UFC, and somehow they just keep bringing him back. Speaking of Austin Hubbard, here he is as an honourable mention. 16-10, and yet still getting fights booked in what is supposed to be the most elite representation of mixed martial arts in the world. Old Mother Hubbard looked in the cupboard and found a whole bunch of fucking losses, including to Rong Zhu, Markel Medeiros, Alexander Hernandez, Kurt Holloway, Vink Pickle, Joe Selecki, the list goes on, and this guy, he seems to make it look easy when he loses, but still gets a call from Dana every couple of months to go step in there and get his ass whooped. Definition of a professional loser, just not even at a high enough level for it to even matter. I can't believe they cut Hamdi Abdel Wahab, but this guy's still allowed to keep fighting. Crazy. And the guy that we have to immediately report and investigate. The FBI should drop whatever the fuck they're doing. Fuck the Epstein files. You guys need to get to the bottom of why Michael Chandler is still ranked in the UFC and still getting fights. Investigate this guy right now. It's so obvious. This guy came over to the UFC with a whole bunch of hype, knocked out Dan Hooker, and since then has done nothing but lose. And lose by quite a lot. His most recent performance against Paddy Pimblett was his worst loss yet as well. It looked like he was actually trying to lose that one. 2 losses to Charles Oliveira. Dustin Poirier fucked him up and he fishhooked him. Justin Gaethje, back in the day in Bellator, he lost to Pitbull Alvarez, and the biggest L he's taken in his entire career, sitting out for 2 years waiting for Red Panty Night and letting McGregor fuck his whole career. Not that there was much of a career left anyway. Michael Chandler, the professional top-ranked loser at lightweight, somehow still ranked in the top 10, but I'll give it to him, very fucking entertaining. Let's move on to welterweight. Had a bit of a harder time with this division. There's quite a lot of guys that deserve to be on the list, and I was only able to narrow it down to 4 honourable mentions and 1 main guy. Let's get into the honourable mentions. The first one, the great white Alex Morono. 24-12. I think he's still in the UFC. This guy's been taken down many times, looked like shit, somehow flukes a win here or there. But yeah, he's lost to Carlos Leal, D-Rod, Nico Price, Joaquin Buckley, Ponzinibbio, Chaos Williams. Pretty solid loss resume there. Somehow though, he still keeps getting guys around the rankings. Shout out Alex Morono. Can't wait to see him get in there with fucking Ian Gary or something next and just get his ass handed to him. Another one of the guys who inspired this list, Phil Rowe. Surprised to see he's only got 6 losses and only really 4 notable ones in the UFC. This guy's on the list just based on the eye test. I swear, every time I see this guy step in the cage, I just know he's going to lose. He's had a win here and there, but pretty sure majority of his fights he's been in the UFC have been clear, dominant losses. His most recent one, he got absolutely fucking manhandled by Seok-Yong Ko. Jake Matthews, Neil Magny, Gabe Green all beat him. Yeah, I'm very confident that this guy's going to lose whenever he fights. Next up, it's Skeletor, Reese McKee. Another one that just makes you realise how shallow the UFC talent pool is and makes you think that they must be pretty desperate for guys to pad this roster out. Recently lost to Axel Sola, lost to Ange Lusa, Chidi Njokwani, Alex Morono, and of course, Hamzat Chimaev got his debut win in the UFC over this guy. Skeletor, don't forget he fucking had a bad loss to He-Man as well. Very, very strong contender at welterweight. Not sure if he's even still in the UFC. He could have been cut, but I had to chuck him on the list. Mickey Gall, 7-7, one of the most beautifully symmetrical UFC records of all time. All 7 of his losses have been to all right guys, plus Alex Morono. But yeah, Ramiz Brahimaj, Basil Hafez, Mike Malott, Mike Perry, Diego Sanchez, Randy Brown, and he's made all of those guys look like they're fucking world champions. Still beat CM Punk though. And finally, the guy at welterweight who is the most professional, most consistent, seasoned loser of all time. The guy who we know goes bang, bang and loses in groups of 2 every time. Kevin 45-70 Holland. 28-15. I swear this guy only started fighting like 5 years ago and he's got 15 losses on his record. Goes to show how active this guy is. And I suppose that when you're so active, you're bound to lose a lot of the time. He's also got 28 wins. But I just feel like Kevin Holland is one of the most flaky, low commitment, half-ass fighter we've ever seen in the UFC. Doesn't give a fuck whether he wins or loses, although deep down I actually think he does. And yeah, pretty reliable that this guy's going to go win-win, loss-loss. So I hate to be the guy he fights next because he's probably going to beat him and probably the guy after that. But look at some of these losses, man. He loses fights he shouldn't be losing. Mike Malott, D-Rod, RDR, Delizzi, MVP, JDM. Seems to really enjoy losing to guys with cool acronym names. Wonderboy, Hamzat, Vittori, Brunson, Brendan Allen, Thiago Santos back in the day. He's fought the who's who, Kevin Holland, but he's fucking lost to most of them. Massive fraud. I don't really like this guy at all. And so I'm very happy to see him lose. So I'm cool with the UFC keeping this guy around as long as they just keep feeding him to killers so he can get fucked up and kicked in the dick. Middleweight division, some very strong contenders in this division. You'll see what I mean. Cedriquez, ass. Only 10-4, but just look at this guy. He's just got the aura of someone who loses professionally, knows he's going to lose, just looks so chinny, but very entertaining to watch fight. Somehow just got submitted by a solo knockout artist, Dante Johnson. I chucked Zach Reese in there. He didn't fucking win that fight, that's for sure. Oleg Zaitchek, Ruziboyev, Josh Fremd. Some of these guys are okay, but yeah, I feel like Dumas, if the UFC wasn't in this mindset of padding guys' records, this guy would be fucking fighting in the PFL. But I hope they keep him around because he brings the to the UFC, and I love it. A staple of the channel. Shout out Cedriquez ass. You guys all knew this one was coming. Cody Brundage. Something about the name Cody and guys just getting fucked up in the UFC. We got Cody Brundage, Cody Gibson, Cody Garbrandt. Yeah, fucking shit name that. 11-7-1. He's been beaten by some really shit names like Eric Mechanico, Little Pickle Nickel, Cedriquez, ass, Rodolfo Vieira, Nick Maximov, and Oleg Zaitchek. Somehow these guys have all lost to Oleg Zaitchek. The UFC loves feeding Oleg Zaitchek these guys and padding his record. Just fighting nerds privilege, I reckon. But Cody Brundage, yeah, pretty reliable guy to lose. Occasionally he'll pull something out of his ass, but most of the time he is ass. And now another pound-for-pound heavy hitter in this list. It is Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. Take a moment to admire that fucking beautiful record, boys. 37-20. I would not be surprised if this guy hits triple-figure losses by the time he eventually gets cut by the UFC. The UFC just seems to love having this guy around. Probably one of the records for the most losses to active guys in the UFC. Have a look at that. I almost had to take a new page to put his losses on. Oleg Zaitchuk, Tavares, RDR, Petrosky, Pfeiffer. And when he fought Pfeiffer, he jumped back in the cage and had a grappling match with him a month later. He must just have a fucking fetish for losing this guy. He's a sucker for punishment. Credit to him for taking fights against nasty guys. Like, you know, he stepped in there against Pfeiffer, Chimaev, Thiago Santos, and of course the fucking dreaded Sam Alvey, and he managed to lose to him. Hall of Fame fucking loser. Probably a future guy on the Mount Rushmore. Gerald Meerschaert. It only makes sense that a guy with Shart in his name is really good at losing in the UFC. Let's get on to light heavyweight, another division that I struggle with a little bit. I just think the light heavyweight division's so shallow in general that it's even shallow in terms of professional losers. So not the best contenders in this one, but a couple of good ones that you'll probably agree with. The first one, a little bit controversial and a little bit sad, Jamal Hill. Now, Jamal Hill has only lost 4 times in the UFC, so he's not on the same level as some of these other guys like GM3, but lately, this guy's just getting put in high-level fights against nasty dudes, Khalil, Yuri, Pereira, and there's a very little chance that Jamal Hill was ever going to win those fights. Respect to him for stepping in there, having the delusional mindset that he's going to win them. 2 thumbs up for Jamal Hill, but yeah, I can see him having a fair few more L's in the next couple of years. He's just got that fucking mindset of a loser, but I like Jamal Hill. Next honourable mention goes to Marcin Prachnio. This guy flies under the radar a bit too. Pretty funny looking at how differently this guy looks now compared to when he was sort of on his win streak. It looks like he's completely changed. He used to be fucking jacked and scary looking, and now he looks like a fucking weird little tubby alien. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that this guy's starting to stack together the L's. Lost to the who's who in the light heavyweight division. Krut, Modestas Bukauskas, Vitor Petrino, Felipe Lins, Ankalaev back in the day. Also lost to Sam Alvey and lost to Rakic on the regional scene. Now, this is a pretty crafty pick as well. Low-key, you might not have expected this one. This one's a bit like Chris Moutinho before. Not the most established resume of losing, but just the most suspect guy to still be in the UFC, and I can't believe the UFC is still keeping this guy around. Rafael Sequeira. Yeah, you might not even know who this guy is, but he's come in to the UFC, lost in devastating fashion to Julius Walker, Modestas Bukauskas, and Ibo Arslan. Got knocked out in all those fights, I'm pretty sure, and he's still getting booked. He's got another killer coming up in the next couple of months, Yakyaev or whatever the guy's name is. You know he's going to get sent to the Shadow Realm again, and the UFC will book him 3 months later against Carlos Ulberg or something. This guy is an expert PhD in getting chinned. Now we're on to the home of the jobbers, the guys that I can't believe are even in the sport in the first place. We're talking about athletes here, guys who are athletically gifted and the peak of the heavyweight division, which is the signature hallmark division of the UFC. Honourable mention 1, it goes to Austin Lane. I think this guy's an ex-NFL player, and I think it's almost time for him to go have another crack at the NFL because he's 13-7. He's lost to Vitor Petrino, who's a light heavyweight, Mario Pinto, Janata Deniz, Justin Tafa. That is a fucking disgusting loss. And Greg Hardy he even lost to. Not much better that one either. If you're losing to Greg Hardy, Justin Tafa, and Janata Deniz on the trot, I'm not sure if this game's for you, brother. But the UFC will keep him around because he looks cool, and he looks fucking cool when he gets chinned. Another honourable mention, I hate to do this to my boy, but I got to chuck Derek Lewis in there. Derek Lewis has been chucked in there against every killer that's ever come up through the heavyweight division, bar maybe John Jones, and the UFC expects and hopes and wants him to lose every single time. But credit to this fucking Giga Chad. He just keeps turning up and knocking guys out against all logic, against all the rules of fitness and physicality and athleticism. This guy just rocks up looking morbidly obese, swinging big, slow haymakers and sending guys to the Shadow Realm. This is why we love Derek Lewis. Every time he fights, we think he's going to lose, but he just keeps showing up. But to his credit, he has fucking lost a lot of times as well. Almeida, Spivak, Pavlovich, Tuivasa, Cyril Gahn. Yeah, plenty of big names there. All of these guys Dana was probably hoping he lost to, but somehow this guy has got the record for the most knockouts in UFC history. Fuck yeah, shout out to the Black Beast. And finally, the guy on a heroic all-time Hall of Fame, legendary downfall and loss streak in the heavyweight division, somehow still finds himself in the top 7 or something in the rankings. You all know who I'm talking about. The shoey monster himself, the Aussie icon, Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa. This guy's on a sick 5-fight loss streak. 2 by KO, 2 by submission, and then a split decision to Jairzinho Rosenstrike, in which one of the judges gave him the fight. Insane stuff. Pretty sad, really. This guy's very marketable and has a lot of potential to be a big star, but he just couldn't quite put the wins together, couldn't stay in shape, and now he's on this epic downfall. I don't think we're far away from seeing Tai Tuivasa retire from the sport and go and box Sonny Bill Williams or Mark Hunt in the Aussie boxing scene, but I've got to give him his credit for being on the fucking most gangster loss streak in the heavyweight division. Investigate this guy. I don't think you're going to find anything. We all know Tuivasa's a legend and turns up to win, but we know the UFC expects this guy to lose every time, and they're pretty spot on with that assumption. That's about it for the list, boys. We've gone through every division. Fuck the women's divisions. No one cares. If you enjoyed this list, make sure you hit the like button down below. Comment below and tell me if I missed your favourite shit fighter or if there's someone that deserves to be on here that I didn't include. Predict who you think's going to go on the next Hall of Fame losing streak. Perhaps there's a guy who's just had his first loss of an insane 10-fight losing streak, and we're just about to witness history again. But for the time being, in the current state of the UFC, these are the guys. Hope you enjoyed the vid. I'll see you for some more content soon. Let's go fucking JDM.